Hey comrades, what's up? I hope you're doing well. We're here to talk about Atelier Iris #1, Eternal Mana. It's pretty good. So this is where the Atelier series switches over to like more of a JRPG with like alchemy components. This game has absolutely no management sim stuff. So the way alchemy is incorporated in this is that you have Klein. He's kind of the main character. I mean, he is, but there's like Klein and Lita are like combo main characters, and then Delsis and Norn are like secondary main characters, and then Arlen and Marguerite are like tertiary main characters. In that whole crew is like the people you can play, but Marguerite essentially takes over for Arlen, and they're both like in it a lot less and have a lot less like stuff going on. I almost feel like the writers really have a thing for Arlen and his story, and I don't know, it doesn't really go anywhere. But we get pretty into the other characters, particularly again like Klein and Lita, who are like the main character plus they're like in love, of course, by some point in the game. So that's fun. So the main thing is it's a JRPG. You wander around fields and you get into random battles, and sometimes it's very like Wild Arms-y, and like if you've never played Wild Arms, you don't know what I'm talking about. But Wild Arms is like the dungeon crawling is very focused. It's like a PlayStation 2, PlayStation Vita series. But the dungeon crawling is very focused on the different characters you have and their different abilities. So like, well, you have like Dragon Quest or Breath of Fire, some of these older games, even Final Fantasy to some extent, where they have like kind of puzzles in dungeons. Like Wild Arms, it's like the dungeons are puzzles. Like that is like the main focus of the game. And I would say this is not that bad, but there is a bit of like puzzle solving around here, and you have a lot of different like components that you can use. So Klein can gather mana, and the mana, not all of them, but most of them have like special abilities. So one will be like raise encounter rates, lower encounter rates. One creates like a block that you can jump on, and yeah, you can jump. So there's like 3D components to this, in that you can go up and down besides just like back and forth and whatnot, like jump up and down too. One of them, there's a couple of abilities that let you blast things in the environment, and then one's like a barrier against stuff, right? So that instead of just like casting spells, like instead of casting like walk safe or whatever it is in Dragon Quest to walk over like lightning floors or poison swamps or whatever, you have like a mana that lets you use like barrier, right? So it's kind of more action RPG related in that regard, but then it's turn-based battles, and then you have a whole separate ability. So Klein's can create mana items that do certain abilities. So some attack, some heal, some do all that stuff. He's the main healer in the game. I don't think anyone else really has healing powers, to be honest. And he is the main buffer, because there's like one other mage, Norn, and she has like attacks. Like I don't know if she has any buffings. And then Arlen has like a self buff, but no one else has like any buffs per se. Lita at some point will unlock like a buff for herself across the board, but that's like story related. You don't get it to like the very end of the game. And generally, she's not as good as like Marguerite or Delsus, to be honest. But let me think. Okay, and then you can create these things out of battle. You can equip people with different mana. The mana are like fire mana, wood mana, life mana, stuff like that. And then they can increase abilities and like leveling up as well as you go along. And when you level up, like in previous games, you can choose different abilities you want to level up till they hit their max level. I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on with this systems-wise. You go to towns, you talk to people. Oh, it has like a whole synthesis thing where you can go to individual establishments, and you can craft things in their establishment. And there's like a whole system with that I barely engaged with. But you can like get the popularity of the store or the restaurant or whatever up. And it seemed like the higher you could get that, the more stuff you could synthesize and then purchase from those stores and stuff. There's like a couple collection mechanics that relate to like getting more gold. Monsters give you gold, they give you experience. I'm trying to think if there's much else going on. You can collect a lot of stuff just wandering around in the environment. So just like every one of these games, like if you just go to like an area, you can like pick stuff off the ground, or you can smash things with your spear, or not your spear, mace. And you can get mana from that, and then use the mana to like make stuff, or then you can and then when you synthesize, you just use like components, right? So the mana is used to make like the mana items, and then there's like components, and then everyone has like mana points, which is completely unrelated to mana in the terms of alchemy usage. And it's like, it might as well just be like technical points, because they're just different attacks everybody has. No one else has like spells really. They got like some funny abilities, except and then Klein, all his like magic is related to his alchemy. So it's like make it hit more people or do more damage or, you know, come alive, which I tried several different times and it never did anything. So I just gave up on it at some point. It's kind of funny that it is. But yeah, that's the game. It's pretty fun. I'm not going to lie. It's a pretty good time playing through the game and going through the puzzles. There was a couple puzzles at the end of the game where I was like, fuck you, game. But aside from that, it was pretty good. It's pretty enjoyable. So yeah, I think that's all there is to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get into the story. So we start off and we get two people who are standing by like this fairy circle thing, and they start talking about whatever nonsense. And the girl finally is like, hey, do you remember when we first met? And he's like, yeah, I do. And then we skip back in time and we see the girl whose name is Lita. This is Lita. And she's walking around this like kind of futuristic looking place, or like this really fancy like palace looking thing. And there's like crystals everywhere and stuff. And then she ends up on the ledge, like outside of the building, just standing there. We then go ahead and skip on over to this cat lady who is talking about to this like other black-haired lady. And she's like, hey, is it time? Is it time? And then the black-haired lady is like, yes, it is time. You must leave. And she's like, hooray! So she runs off, and then we skip over to like this blue-looking magic creature-looking thing, and she's named the Chief of Water. And then this cute little like fire creature wanders up, and he's the Chief of Fire. And they talk very ominously about like the mana in the world and things that are occurring and stuff like that. We then jump over to this guy, and he's in this big summoning circle, and he's failing at whatever he's trying to do, and he's getting like upset about it. And then he mentions like a ruby prism or whatever. Finally, we head back over to the main character, Klein, who is the guy that was talking to Lita at the very beginning. And he's running away. He's out of mana or something, and there's an eagle chasing after him, and he's like, oh, fuck, I'm dead. And then this little guy, Popo or Poto, but I think it is Popo. Popo, who is the mana, he looks like the elf creatures from all the other games, and there are elves in this game, like these little they're fairies. These other like fairies, little green fairies with their little green outfits and whatnot. But he is actually the mana of wood. I don't think it's mana earth. I think it's mana wood, or the woods or whatever. And they have a conversation about what's going on, and then the fairy, there's like bird thing that's chasing them attacks. And this girl, the girl Lita, like shows up, and she beats the shit out of the eagle for us. And then she's like, hey, maybe we're going the same direction, something. And Klein's like, and then she sasses him, calling him like a piece of shit, essentially, and being like, oh, you're weak ass. And he's like, no, I'm just out of mana. I could have taken care of myself. And she's like, tee-hee, whatever, something, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, whatever. And then she like wanders off. After she asks him if he needs any more help or whatnot. And then Popo's like, I like her. We should have stuck around with her. And Klein's like, whatever. And then we leave this like little forest area, dungeon looking thing. And then we get like this backstory. And it's like 700 years ago, there was this, you know, the alchemists like ruled the world, or like coming up with all sorts of like magic doohickers and whatnot. And that the alchemy, specifically like the kingdom of Avonbury or whatever, was like the main center of the whole world and all this stuff. And then something crazy happened, and it was all destroyed. And then we get like shots of this mysterious lady, and we get shots of like Lita, but she looks like she has wings and whatnot. And then like, you know, after it was all destroyed, 700 years pass, and then we learn about Kavok. And Kavok is this like town that was established outside of Avonbury. So because travelers would come, they'd want to like find the secrets of alchemy, like other alchemists or just like adventurers who wanted to get treasure from there and stuff like that. And so Kavok was created, or it was established, and it grew based on like the treasure hunters and all this stuff. And now it's kind of like a main town in this area. So at this point, we then pick up with Klein as he enters the town, and then we can walk around, we can learn about the town and stuff. We get to meet like Norman, who runs the inn, and like, I want to say Lydia, who runs like just like the general store. And then there's like, she's not a tsundere, she's like a very sassy girl, but like only to Lita pretty much later on when Lita joins the party. It's like the niece of Norman. She runs like the alchemy shop, and then there's like a church and a sewer, I think. And then there's like the bald guy who's in like a lot of these games, like the first game, and he's all bald and, you know, likes to sing, and he does the weaponsmithing in this game. There's no armor. I didn't mention this before, but you can equip 2 accessories and 1 weapon, and it's like, it is like most of the other games where it's like the weapons are like very minuscule, but at some point you learn how to like mana forge, and you can make them like slightly different or give them like slightly better powers or whatnot. Let's see. Okay, so then we talk to the innkeeper guy, and he's like, hey, why don't you go around and meet everybody, and here, take these lunches to some people, and they'll help you out and stuff. And then this whole part is like very like tutorial oriented. So this is where we learn about like mana items, because we find one in like the item shop and we talk to her about it and she's like, oh, you can have it, whatever. We also meet the niece, and then we're done delivering all the sandwiches and whatnot. We come back and we meet Delsis, and Delsis and Norman like chat with each other when we show back up, and Delsis is this like swarmy looking guy who looks kind of out of place, and Klein starts talking about him being an alchemist and stuff and trying to get to Avonbury, and they talk about a gate, and they also talk about this tower. Delsis mentions the Tower of Airfin. Yep, Airfin. And how it had to do with like alchemy or something, and that he should check that out first. That's really cool. So we head back through the forest. We head through this forest a lot. We head back through the forest, and it's a very small like little side map kind of situation. So there's like the world map that you can run around, and then there's like all the zones and the dungeons and towns and whatnot. So we get to the tower, and we like take a little teleporter up there, and we get another mana item, and then we look over and like, okay, that is the gate over there. That's where we need to go, and it's the gate of Hymnal. And this supposedly leads to Avonbury. So then we head over there. And then at some point we like, oh yeah, the mana item that we picked up in this treasure chest on top of the tower, it's like it needs like fire, and then Popo can't use like fire mana, so we learned that there's other mana that we need to get access to so that we can do more stuff at some point. So then we head to the gate and we're like looking around and like, oh, it's locked and there's no way to get inside. And then Lita shows up again, and this time we discuss about how we both want to get through the gate and that maybe we can work together to figure it out and stuff. And then we go up, Lita's like, oh, there's a message there, but I can't read it or something. And so we go read it, or Klein does. And it talks about like finding something and doing something, and then we're like, okay, cool, sounds good. So what do you do actually, Lita? And Lita's like, oh, I'm a Gamgazet, I think is what it's called, which is they're kind of like monster hunters. They hunt specifically Growloons. I think they're called Growloons. Growloon in the translation, at least. So they hunt Growloons, and Growloons are like these things that like pop up here and there, and then whenever they pop up, they like summon monsters from like the ether or something. And she talks about how like she's, basing her operation out of like Korvok, and then so we could like team up and we could be Gamgazets together or whatever. And then at this point, we start finding these books around, and these books are like safe spots or like camping sites in Final Fantasy. But only you don't have to use any item. You just click on it, and then you can go inside and you can save your game with like a big tome, and then Popo can like heal all your wounds and stuff. And I think it affects Popo's like abilities to some extent, because there's like a whole mechanism that I barely engaged with where you can like feed your mana like items to get their like mood up and to get their like liking of you up. And so sometimes Popo's thing would be low, and I'm like, have I healed a lot? And I like fed him, essentially. And it's like, okay, cool. Anyway, so we head back over to Korvok, and it's there that we run into like these two kids who are like very predominant for like the first little portion of this game, and then like become completely irrelevant. Well, not completely irrelevant. Like there's a boy and a girl, and the boy will like keep popping up as he'll be like, oh, I want to learn more about alchemy. Do you have any books? And we're like, yeah, take this book, and then take this book, and then we get like little cute side stories about that. But they also have a ghost friend named Pamela, and it's like, hey, Pamela from Atelier Judy, I want to say. She was one of the companions you could pick up, and she like hung out in the Atelier in like the capital city, if I remember correctly. Anyway, she's a recurring person in like a lot of these games. I think she's even in like some of the RZA games, which are like not the newest at this point, but they're pretty new. Like they're like the iteration before the current iteration, the last one that came out, if I remember correctly. Anyway, the kids love playing in the sewer with Pamela or something, and so cool, sounds good. So they go do that, and then we go talk to Norman some more, and we learn that we learn more about the Galgazet, I think it is Galgazet thing, and then there's like a Galgazet of like apartment attached to the end that we can like lease for free as long as we're here to like engage with the Growloons and take care of them and whatnot. So now we have a home base, and we go there a lot. And it's got this alchemist like cauldron in there as well, which doesn't matter because we can just do alchemy shit like wherever we're at. So it's like, cool, it looks good. And it's got 2 floors and like a kitchen and some beds and stuff. It's actually pretty dope, like townhouse kind of situation for like our clubhouse that we do. And this is where we learn about synthesizing, because he teaches us how to synthesize like some meal he's making, and then depending on the components you use to actually synthesize. So it'll give you like broad terms. It's like, oh, you need like a base. What do you want that base to be? And it's like 5 different things. Like you need like a fish, and there's like, do you want this kind of fish or that fish or like octopus or like whatever? And that can change like the traits, it seems, that get attached to it, and then the different traits will like increase the popularity of the dish. And then if the dishes get so high, I assume you level up something, and then you can like have access to more stuff, would be my assumption, or maybe you get paid out. I don't know. Again, I never really engaged with it. We head out and we also meet, what's her name? Rurona, who looks just like Maria from the first game. She's got that same kind of alchemy outfit. And she keeps popping up. She's like involved in a lot of side quests that have to do with like alchemy and stuff. And like one of the main quests, you have to like engage with her as well. And then after that, we get a little scene in the church. This is our introduction to one of the main antagonists, this knight guy named Bigger. He is in some sort of like defense organization around here, like the Abbenbury something guard or something. And he had a guy spying on us when we were over by the gate. And so the guy informs him about us and trying to get into the gate and everything that's going on. And there's an alchemist around. And then he goes to inform Mool. And it's like, who's Mool? Well, we'll figure him out in a second. We then do some synthesizing. And then a guy at some point like runs into the village. And he's like, oh, no, there's Growloons over in the forest. And we're like, dope. So we head over to there to take care of our Galgazit thingy. And while we're there, we see this swordsman named Arlen, and he's fighting some monsters. And Lita's like, back off, this is our job, asshole. And then we fight and kill some monsters in the Growloon. After we leave, Arlen comes back in because he wandered off at that point. And he mentions that our mana power is the exact same, or it's very similar to quote-unquote him. And then Arlen also seems to have some like cute mana like mascot creature, which is Dorbs. So we head back to the inn. We finished the tutorial on the Growloon hunting and how there's a book, and like when we kill a certain amount of Growloons, we like level up our guild rank. It's kind of like probably more people have played something like Tales, Legend of Heroes, Trails in the Sky, where you have like your like bracers, I think is what it's called. And then you do side quests and you level up your bracer so you can get access to more stuff. This just gives you gold. You get a lot of gold from this. You don't get a lot of gold from enemies, to be honest. Like most of the gold until I started cheating came from this and like this other collecting thing. Let's see. And then we get to name our group, and don't spend too much time naming your group, because it literally never came up ever again. Like I spent a bit of time like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I don't know my name to be. This will be interesting. And then I don't remember it ever. And like I read through a lot of text, and I don't remember anyone ever even referencing it after this point. Like maybe it's in the book, so when you look at the book, you can see what your fucking guild name is or whatever, but it doesn't really come up. We wander around and eventually come to the church, and inside we see Beggar, and he's like got a flame mana, and he's kind of treating him like an asshole. And so we attack him to get him to leave the fire mana alone. And then he's like, get him! And the fire mana like blasts the guards and then helps us like escape. And then we all head down to the sewer. But on the way to the sewer, Delsis shows up, and Delsis is like, hey, let me help you guys get out of here, and we can figure some stuff out. You guys are in a heap of trouble, right? So we head down to the sewer, we wander around for a bit. Delsis like joins the party forever at this point. And then we get through the sewer, and then we're kind of hanging out back in the house. Let's see. We leave Lake Town. Okay, yeah. And he talks about how like, hey, we should leave town for a little bit, and that he's got some business out in like this lake town that's a little bit further away, and that we can go with him over there, and then we can kind of like wait for like everything to come down. And then the fire mana that's been like tagging along behind us officially joins us. Now we have fire mana and the wood mana, and then we get like, so the ability of the wood mana is that, what was the ability of the wood mana? I don't know if it has any ability, actually. It's we just can hit things with our mace, and that lets us absorb their mana. Maybe that's his ability. And then when we get the fire mana, he can like blast these purple blocks, which helps with some of the puzzle solving stuff. But other than that, it's not really, I don't think I've used it outside of that, to be honest. Mostly I just hit stuff with the mace. Anyway, so then we head off to like this fishing village thingy. Before we can go much further, though, meanwhile, we get Beggar, he's talking to Mole, and Mole, we finally figure out who Mole is. Mole's the guy who's trying to like summon stuff and failing at the very beginning, and he is the other like primary antagonist. We don't really deal with him outside of like, he just like shows up and taunts us, or like we see him like in these little scripted events periodically, but until the very end of the game we really don't engage with him at all. They're talking about, quote-unquote, the girl, and the girl seems to have what he wants or something, and then they all leave. So we make our way over to Lake Town. Delsis wants to talk to some fishmonger here about something, and then the guy's like, hey, I need stained glass, and everyone's like, oh, stained glass, it's like impossible to find stained glass, and the guy's like, yep, that's why I want it. And then Popo's like, well, I think there's some in that forest back there. Delsis and him get into like an argument. Popo's like, I'm the element of wood, and like, I know what the fuck I'm talking about, and so I was like, okay, fine, so we're going over there. So we head over to that forest, and then we get there, let's see, it starts raining, and then Lita gets like really pissed off because she doesn't like being wet or something, and so she takes a towel and goes and like bathes like out off screen. And then we see there's another girl there. This is like a redheaded girl, and so redheaded girl looks fine as shit, and Lita looks fine as shit, and it's awesome. And then they both like show up after they like bathe together or whatever, which I'm like, hell yeah, Gust, like the fuck yeah. That's fucking so good. Why is it always so good? Why is it so hard for everyone else to figure this shit out? Anyway, right now she's called Lady Knight, and then Delsis like hits on her, and she's like, back the fuck up, nerd, and then takes off, like completely blowing him off. But we find the stained glass, and someone's like, oh man, it's like cracked, and Popo's like, it's not a big deal, we should be fine, it should be good enough. And there's like, all right, fine, well, you're the Woodman, so we'll trust you because you knew this was going to happen and be here, so we'll still be good. We head back over to Fishtown, and the guy's like, thanks bro, and Delsis is like, sorry man, it's kind of cracked, and he's like, I don't give a fuck, and he like shatters it, and it's like, I'm using this for like a lure or whatever, and it's like, dope, so mission accomplished. And so it gives us some like random old bullshit that we don't really need. And we're like, okay, cool, sounds good. And then Delsis is like, maybe we should head back to Kavik. And I'm like, oh, we're doing that now? And so we head back to Kavik, and we speak to Norman, and he mentions the knights are like distracted or something, that they're off doing like asshole stuff elsewhere or whatever. Anyway, there's a big issue in town with there being like a ghost in the sewer, and we're like, oh no, a ghost. So we head back over to the sewer. Yep, we head back there a lot, and we head there to see that the kids, the boy and the girl, are arguing about whether they should play in the sewer or not, and how their parents don't want them playing in there because the ghost or whatever. But we're like, oh no, we'll go check it out, it should be okay. And we get in there, we just fucking run, we find Pamela, and we're like, oh Christ, this is what everyone's scared about? And I'm like, hell yeah, Pamela, fucking hot as shit still. So we talked to her about the ghost problem, and she's like, I don't think there are any more ghosts here, but I'll check it out and come let you know. And we're like, okay, thanks, good luck. So we report back to Norman. He's like, oh, that's good to know everything was taken care of, and it's not really a problem. And then we go back to our home, and as soon as we get in there, little girl runs in, and she's like, oh no, boy is missing. He went into the sewer. I think something happened to him. I think it's a ghost. And then Pamela shows up, and she's like, there is another ghost. You have to come save the boy. And we're like, oh shit. So we go back to the sewer again, and we find the boy about to be attacked by like a mean ghost. So we fight and kill that shit. And this brings up one of the most annoying things about this game. There's two super annoying things about the battles. The first is that some enemies can only be hit by magic attacks, which would be fine, but the only person who can do magic attacks out of the 3 people that I have for like the first third of the fucking game, one of them can do damage, and he's not a fighter, so he has to use mana items or just like putts around hitting dudes in the face. And my biggest complaint about this game is honestly the combat. Like at some point when I like I'll get there, but my computer like crashed and I had to reinstall everything because my like fucking battery like destroyed the hard drive. So I had to get a new battery and a hard drive and then reinstall everything. That I had to like play from the beginning again, and I was like 7 hours in at that point or something, and I was like, I'm cheating, fuck this game, and running everything at like 3 times speed. So once I was running things at 3 times speed, I was like, this is much more tolerable, because the battles are slow as shit, and sometimes it's just like bullet sponge kind of characters where it's just like you hit and you hit and you hit, and the thing does like no damage to you, but you're just like, oh god, this is taking forever. Anyway, that's a complaint for later. Again, we will again complain about it, because outside of that, this game is bomb. Let's see. So we go Pamela and the girl. Okay, so we beat them. Pamela and the girls show up in the sewer as well, because I guess they followed us in, and pulled up like a rear vanguard or something. And so everyone head home safe, including us. But when we get back, Lita's all like tucked out or whatever. So Delsis and Klein are gonna go like bro out or something and wander in the village, and Lita like goes to take a nap, and at some point we see her like she goes downstairs by herself. She like explodes with like energy. She doesn't explode, but there's like all this like electrical energy around her, and then she grows like these fucking wings, and she's like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm like, holy shit, that was hot. And then we go back inside the house because I want to see if she's there, and she's like curled up in a ball like on a bed, and I was like, hot as shit. Bless you, Gust. Bless you so much. Even your sprites are hot. And so we just go meander about, like literally just do fucking nothing. I just like wander to some shops, wander back out, and then head back to the house, and Lita's like all better, and I'm like, fuck you, game. Stupid shit. So she joins, and then we start hearing rumors about some sort of show going on at a local theater, and so we're like, we got nothing else to do, so let's go check it out. So we head over there. And while we're there, we see that some of Beggars' men's are there. So we just ignore them. And while we're watching, that cat lady from the introduction, she shows up, and she's like bumping into people, like the Beggars' men, and then bumps into us. And all of a sudden, we like notice, like, hey, we got robbed. And it's that lady. And she's like, ruh-roh. And so she nopes the fuck out of there. And we go to chase them, and Beggars' men goes to chase them. And then we end up heading back over to Kavik. And that's where we hear her name as being like Norn, or it says Norn in like her thing, and later on it goes back to being that cat lady. So there's just some bad like programming going on in this situation. But then we get these like very bizarre like so when characters talk, like the main characters and the main villains, they always have like a portrait kind of situation, so we can see some of their reactions and we can see them. And then for like the first third of the game, we get portraits for like Beggars' men's, and they all have names. They're like Zui, like Ein, Dine, and then Zui, which is like 1, 2, 3 in German, and I think there's a fourth one too. And like one guy's like fat, there's like the smoking hot babe, there's this like normal looking knight guy, and then there's like scared looking knight guy. And then at some point in the game, they just like give up and are like, no more of this. And so even when they talk, which they talk a lot in this first little bit, and then they talk like never except like a couple times, and then when they talk later, they just don't even put their like portraits up, which was super funny because I'm like, I guess they just were like, fuck this, it's too much. Like they had like a whole thing, because they talk like a lot in this. They're talking to Nord and they're like running stuff, and this, I think the hot chick was named Veer or something like that. And so they argue, Norn and her, and then Norn runs away, and then we show up and they're like something, and then Arlen shows up and he's like, hey, she ran off into the woods, you better chase her. And we're like, okay. So we head over there, and then Norn's being harassed by Beggar, and we catch up, and then we argue with him back and forth, and we fight, and after we beat them, they all run the fuck out of there. Not Norn. Well, Norn does too. She runs off. But before she runs off, she gives us our stuff back. And then she says something about the witch Zelda Dia. And so we leave the forest, and we get a shot of Beggar with his minions talking about beating us up and doing all this stuff. So we head back home, and then we're chilling there, and then Daesus starts talking about Zeldida and how he's like heard of her, and it's like familiar, and that it's been a while, but like she lives in the forest, and she's like a witch, and she might know more about mana and stuff, and that she lives over in like this area called Poto Forest, which is, it's hard to get to because it's on the other side of like this fortress, and the fortress is owned by bandits and they got cannons and shit. But if we go to the fishmonger, he'll like sail us across, like they call it a lake at some point, I thought, but it's like more of a river. So they sail us across this like lake river thingy, and then we can go from there through like Iris's resting place, and yep, there it is, Iris. And then from there, we'll be in Poto Forest, and then we can go try to track down the Zelda Dia. And so it's like, okay, cool, let's go do that. And on our way there, we meet a couple more of these like goofballs who work for Beggar. The first one's like the scaredy cat, and he's like, oh, you can't get through here without like a passport. And we're like, oh fuck, where do we get a passport from? So then when you get off the boat, you're like in the open world, there's two paths to take. You gotta go that path first, meet that guy, and then you gotta go take the other path, and you get to like this caravan thingy where there's like this lady Lecter, I think is her name, and she is like the collecting mechanic. So what she does, she just collects like items, and she doesn't even take them. She just like, as soon as you have had them in your inventory, you can like report back, and she gives you a lot of fucking gold. And there's some other like main story stuff that's kind of centered around her later on as well, but that's her primary thing, is just to like let you gather things. And then here she also gives us a passport, just for like funsies. So then we head back to the checkpoint, and this time there's a different one of Beggar's guys. It's the fat guy. And he's like, okay, thanks for the passport, bye. And we're like, bye, never see you again. And we did. We never see that guy ever again. Well, we see him when we fight him, but he no longer speaks or gets like a portrait or anything. And so we head into Iris's rest, and then we kind of fuck around in there for a little bit. We find these pillars, and we stand around like Delsis, Lita, and Klein, and chit-chat about that, and like something must go there or whatever. And yeah, something does go there. It's not much later. It's like a little bit later. We'll come back. We then rescue the Mana of Darkness from her prison, and we learn about like finding mana secretly throughout dungeons and stuff. And then right before we get out, let's see, Maul shows up, and he starts talking shit, and he's like, oh, you're the girl, something, I need that thing, give it to me. And she's like, what the fuck you talking about, creep, get off. And then we're like, yeah, get off my girlfriend. And then he like paralyzes Delsis and Klein, and then he like does something to Lita and is like, aha, I got the ruby prism from you, suck it, bitches, I'll see you later. And then he bounces out of there, and Lita's all hurt, and we're like, hey, you okay, you need some help? And she's like, I'm fine, that's just PMS or something. And so which is funny because Lita's like the perfect girlfriend, because as we find out, she can't have PMS, that's a whole different story. But so they were like, okay, cool. So we pop out in like Poto Forest. Let's see, where was I in my little notes here? And then we wander around for a bit, and then we find the witch's hut, and we head in there, and we find the black-haired woman and Norn from like the very beginning, and this black-haired woman is Zelda Dia. And there's like this cute scene where Delsis is like, holy shit, you look so young, I thought you were like an old witch. And she's like, I'm an old witch, I'm like 250 years old. And he's like, what the fuck? And we find out that Zelda Dia and Klein's grandmother, who taught him about alchemy, her name's Daphne, I'm pretty sure, they were like best friends forever, and they had another friend too, but we'll learn more about that guy later. And then before she's going to help us with alchemy, we need to prove to her that we can like take care of her stuff. And I don't know. Essentially, it's like we have to prove that we can, we've like learned enough, and before she'll like bless us off. And then blessing us is just like giving us Norn to like carry around for the game and like only use when we have to fight magical enemies, because her main attack does do magic damage, which is nice. So now we have 2 people that can attack like half the enemies in the fucking game. Anyway, so we fight her, beat the shit out of her. Zelda gives us Daphne's book, which is our grandmother's alchemy book, and we never like speak about that again. It's just in our inventory doing nothing, shit all. We then talk about the lineage of Iris and like about alchemy and all that stuff. At that point, Norn joins the party. She then mentions that we need to go back to the resting place, and we see that Zelda Dia also has a mana. She has like the mana of wind or something, and that all alchemists do. And I was like, I mean, a lot of people so far have had like extra mana lying around, as in like not the magic power, but the actual like creatures known as mana. And let's see. Oh, and then she's like, okay, I'm gonna give you a choice. You can choose an item, mana item, or like a skill. And it really don't think too hard about that, because whatever you don't choose, you just automatically get like a couple hours later in the game, and neither of them are that good. So don't worry about that. And so time to head back to Iris's resting place. So you remember those pedestals we talked about earlier? We head back right there, and we get there, we're like, oh, we can just put mana on there. Now that I have 3 mana, which darkness mana, flame mana, and wood mana, they all hop on, and it goes, and there was this door at like the top of Iris's resting place. When I say top, I just mean like the furthest north, or furthest towards the top of the screen you can go in this dungeon. So I guess north. And now it's gone. The barrier's gone. So we head over there, and we're like, we still can't open the door or anything. And then all of a sudden, Lita and Klein like disappear into the room, and it's like, oh no, what's going on? And then we see like a hologram of Lita with wings, and she freaks out. And then Klein finds this notepad and talks about the ruby prism and eternal mana, and that her constructs were like powered by the ruby mana and taking care of like her daughter and stuff. And it's like, holy shit, this is like talking about like what Mole was looking for. He must have been looking for it because it has unlimited mana. And then we also learned that it like powers Lita because she's a construct, right? And which is why she can't have PMS, like I mentioned, which makes her the perfect girlfriend, because she's like a robot girlfriend. Hell yeah, Nikki got us a victory, we're back. Yeah, boy. Yes, alchemy girlfriend. I love it. I love the shit out of it. Fuck you, Gust. Hell yeah, it's hot as shit. Anyway, so then so she's still kind of freaking out. We take her back to Zelda Dita because she's like, power surge and all this other stuff. And then we learned from Zelda Dita that the ruby prism essentially was what was since it was powering her, that she's like constantly draining mana. But that's okay, because Zelda Dita is like a disciple of Iris, and that she was able to create this like mana bath. And you're like, mana bath, huh? And then we see like what is it called? A character portrait of Lita, and she's like naked, and her hair is covering her tits, and she's like floating in the mana bath. And I was like, praise Gust and all the blessed things they do in this world. Like, hell yeah, Gust. Fuck yeah. And that periodically as her mana depletes as we like use her in combat. So if you're like me and you virtually never use her, it's like this is like a non-issue whatsoever. And the reason I use her is because she's not that good compared to Delsis and then Arlen when we get him shortly. But even Norn a lot right in the early game. It's like, why do I have Delsis? Because Delsis can usually hit 2 or 3 characters at a time, because he shoots like everybody in a row, and then he's got like, he can just sit in the back and do maximum damage. So he's like pretty OP. Like I think I used him for virtually the whole game. Occasionally I would switch out Norn for him and keep Arlen later on, just because I needed more magic attack, but generally I kept him for most of the game. Where was I with this? Oh, so we get the sexy shot of that, and then so we talk about getting the ruby prism back, and then guess who shows up? Arlen shows up, and he's like, you can't beat him, trust me. And we're like, oh yeah, fuck you. And he's like, no, fuck you, come check this out. So then we go back over to the fairy like circle where we fought Norn earlier, and then Arlen like one-shots us. And even when I had to play through this whole fucking section again with like max health turned on, the guy still beat the shit out of me. Like there's like no way. And it's not max health as in I had permanent max health, I just had 999 health, so I still had like, it would get drained throughout the battle. And some bad guys like do not give a fuck about how much life you got. They did a lot of fucking damage. And so there's no way, if we can't beat him, there's no way we're going to beat Mole or whatever. So, okay, what other options do we have? Okay, we can make a ruby prism. How do we do that? And it's like, I don't know. But he's like, I don't care. I'm going to help my girlfriend Lita out. I'm going to make sure she's okay. And then we get a whole bunch of flashbacks that are like Lita and Klein hanging out up to this point, and it helps inspire him to like, no, I can do it. We can do this. And then let's see. So we need to do that, we need to get to Avonbury, but to do that, we need to get through the gate. And so to get through the gate, we need to get like the 2 mirrors that are missing or broken from the gate, right? And then this whole game turns into like this whole disaster as far as I'm concerned. It's just like a bunch of like literally wandering around until the game like triggers something in the coding. And it's like, go here, or someone like tells you something about a new place you can go. And then you just kind of wander around there some more and you do a bunch of like random bullshit side quests that like all lead eventually to getting the mirrors. But it's like, it is so much meandering. And I was just like, the fuck, man. So it's not really put together that well, to be completely honest. And then on the way back to Kovak, we see these like teleportation areas, and they teleport us to like this little elf magical camp, like forge or whatever. And so this unlocks like the fast travel in the game, which only lets you fast travel from certain locations to like other very specific locations, or those. So it's like all the main towns you can teleport to and away from, and then certain other areas you can teleport away from, but you can't teleport back. And that really fucked me over because there's a teleporter like in the final dungeon of the game, and I used it because I was gonna like just go get some more items, and then I had to like come all the way back to the dungeon, and I was like, fuck it. And then I finally got to the last boss. This is like spoiler alert, I guess. And they kicked the shit out of me, and I was like, okay, I should have just gotten those items when I got teleported out here by accident the first time, so then I had to go do it all over again. And I was like, kind of a drag there at the end. Not gonna lie. Okay, so then as we're meandering about, we find Delsis arguing with one of the fairies, not the, like the little green fairies from all the games. He's just like hanging out in the inn, and it's something we learn about, like, oh, he wants some like super duper Puni ball, which Punis are like the slimes in this game. And it's like, well, we're supposed to get that, and he's like, well, there's a giant Puni over there, and we're like, okay, cool, let's go do that. So we go kill that, and there's like a humorous like back and forth with like the Puni brothers and all this stuff. We finally get the giant Puni ball and take it back to the elf, and then he just gives us some more bullshit, which is something we need. It's like a sphere of fire at like almost the end of the game. So it's like, okay, well, we had to do this at some point, but like, well, it was kind of silly. And then over by the giant Puni, there's also this like crazy chess set looking area, and we can go there and you can just get like the shit kicked out of us or whatever. And it's right around this point where, my computer died out and I had to play all this stuff again. So if you're watching the video and not just listening to me meander and ramble, you'll notice that all of a sudden I start having like max money, and then I have like all my characters except Lita for some reason have 9999 life. And then after that, like random side quest, we get another random side quest from the smith, and then no one's like, oh, maybe we should talk to the smith. I just like kept wandering into buildings, talking to people, and a lot of times people just have like bullshit to say that has nothing to do with anything. And so it was, again, it's like just so much meander. But he mentions this town Arcos, where he needs to get ore from over there because they have like a mine or something. So we head over there. It's kind of over by where Zelda Diaz Forest is. And then while we're over there, we run into Lecter again, and she loves Norn so much because she's like a cat person. And this is like a running gag for like, we keep coming back to this every time Lecter's around. And there's like, at some point, like Lecter pretends to be like an old woman so she could touch Norn's like fuzzy hair or whatever. And it's really kind of creepy, to be completely honest. But anyway, no one's seen a mirror in this place and nothing. But one of the shop ladies is like, oh, hey, if you're just around here doing nothing, like fuck all and have nothing better to do. My sister went missing up at like the cave of Alexa. And I'm like, okay, sure, I really have nothing else to do. So we head up there. And when we're in that cave, we find these like doors, or we find this door that is like super sketchy, and everyone's like, it seems like we can get in there, but we don't have like the key to do it. So it's like, oh well, whatever. We also get the stone mana here, and the stone mana is really nice because he gives us like a boost, and not like a boost like you double jump. Like he can drop him, and then you can jump on him, and then jump up to higher places, which we use immediately to get to the sister. So we rescue her, and she's all lovey-dovey with Klein, giving a big hug, and then Lita obviously gets jealous. And then she has the ore that we're looking for. And then as we're walking out of the house, walking out of the cavern, her sister shows up, and yay, hooray. And then she goes back to like the mines where she runs her shop or whatever. We head back over to the blacksmith. We gave him the ore, and then he sings so poorly that everyone gets psychic damage until we force him to stop. And then he gives us some like some old bullshit item. But we have to do this, I'm pretty sure. So, because then we go back to the house, and again, we have like no fucking clue what to do. And so everyone's like, let's just take a nap. And then we go over to Mole, and we see him just like being an asshole and thinking about how he's an asshole and how he wants to do all this stupid bullshit and whatnot. And it's like, good for you, Mole, you're a dickweed. After that little scene, we head out of our house, and then we run into the redheaded girl, and she's having an argument with Beggar about something or whatever. And it's clearly they got some sort of history. And then Norn gets hungry, and Delsis is like, oh, let me cook you something. And everyone's like, you can cook? And he's like, yeah, I'm a great cook. And so then we just go right back to the house. We literally were in the house, got the mole scene, and then walked out, ran into Beggar and the redheaded lady, and then go right back to the house. It's like, what? And the Delsis is cooking, and everyone's like actually very impressed because he actually knows how to cook. And then, but Norn gets like distracted because she's a cat, and it's like, I'm so hungry right now, I can't wait any longer. And she like wanders out of there, and then someone's like, where the fuck did Norn go? And then someone shows up and is like, hey, this note's for you, and it's from Beggar, and he's like, come to the sewers. And I'm like, yep, we're going back to the sewers. And so we head back into the sewers, and Beggar has Norn, and there's some back and forth about that, and then she gets like threatened. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention Arlen joined us all the way back with Zelda Dia when he like showed up to like fight us, and then he joined us. And he's great. I wish he would stay with us the whole game. Spoiler, he doesn't. I think I already mentioned that. But anyway, he uses some sort of like teleportation magic that he has to like steal Norn back, and then Bugger and his men get like all freaked out and they run away. So we chase them into the church and like, aha, we set a trap. We knew you would follow us. And then we kick the shit out of them. But this time they have this like cute little like warthog character. It's kind of like 7 Deadly Sins. And it is like the strongest character. It is the strongest of them, hands down, besides Beggar when we like fight him by himself, like right at the end. So we beat the shit out of them, and then they run off to get reinforcements. And so it's like, hey, maybe we should get out of here before they get the reinforcements. Like, dope, sounds good. And as we're heading out, Arlen as like, oh, he like stops for a second, and Lita's like, you okay, bro? And he's like, no, I just got a headache. It's no big deal. It's just from like teleportation magic or something. And there's a lot of different scenes of like Arlen being like sick, or like his mana being concerned about him, and like, I don't know, it doesn't really go anywhere. Like at some point he turns to stone, and then he just like is not stone, and I was like, okay. Anyway, back at the place, we discussed the mirrors that we're looking for again, and then Arlen's like, wait a second, you say mirrors? There's like I think you can get a Twilight mirror over at like the cliff of Nevin or something, but to get there we have to get past the Bandit Keep, and we're like, oh fuck, how are we gonna pass the Bandit Keep? And then the elf guy that we got the super poom poom ball for like rolls in, and he's like, whoa, hey, what's up, you guys trying to get into that bandit thing? Good luck with all the artillery and the cannons and stuff, but you know what, maybe I could help you. I'll meet you over there with my homies. And we're like, sure, sounds good. So we head over there, and his homies are 2 chickens, like literal chickens. And so they assault the front base and start goofing around, so the cannons will fire at them so we can get up, and we just fuck over the bandits like real hard. And then at some point like a whole army of like fairies show up, and they just bash through the fucking gate. And then we head up there, we fight some more guys, and then we fight the boss of this shindig. Oh, Cleft of Niven. Yeah, Niven. And then we're able to get through that till we can go to Cleft of Niven, and that leaves that place empty. And at some point Bigger and his men like come and take it over and like harass like the bandits and arrest them all and take stuff in and run up. But we work our way down the Cleft of Niven, which is like this big cliff face, and at the bottom we get to this like water elemental or water mana character that like when we throw stuff in the water, she'll like give us stuff back. And there's a whole scene where it's like Norn like tosses in Delsis's wallet, and like hilarity ensues, and then the lady's like, here's your wallet back, plus I'm gonna give you something else. Do you want a jewel or a stem? And everyone's like, oh, we should go for the jewel for sure. And then Norn's like, stem or stone, and she's like, stone it is. And we're like, Norn, no. But then the stone is the Twilight mirror. Yay, it's one of the 2 mirrors we need. Awesome, fucking baller as shit, we got it. So Norn saves the day with her like cat-like antics. And we're like, cool, 1 more to go. Where can we possibly go to get this thing figured out? And we're like, I don't know, let's go talk to Lecter. And Norn's like, I really don't want to talk to her. She's kind of a creep. And I'm like, she is a creep. But we're going to go do that because we don't have any other leads. So we go talk to her, and she's like, I'll tell you more about the mirror on one condition. And Norn's like, here we go. And she's like, I want to take Norn into the back of my caravan, and I want to touch her fur. And everyone's like, sure. And Norn's like, really, guys? Really? I'm like a child. And it's like, it'll be fine. She's not going to do anything that bad, right? So she goes back there, does some creepy stuff. We get a new mana here. It's the mana of, I think we get our own mana of wind here, which is like the sheep lady. And then we go back to our place so everyone can rest, and Norn can like cry it out from like her sexual harassment that she received. I don't think it was a sexual assault per se, but she definitely got rubbed up, which is not something cool. That is not cool. Okay, so we rest up. And then Norn obviously wants some like comfort because she was like, you know, harassed. And so we like rub her back and help her like fall asleep, and then she like meows, and then Zeldita like takes her over and is like, hey, thanks so much for taking care of Norn, I really appreciate that. She's actually like a cat. I turn into a human being at some point because fuck it, why not? I'll play God. I'll play Anya and Dr. Moreau. It's all good. Oh man. And so anyway, she's super grateful about that. And then after we all take a nap and have that conversation, we go outside and we hear about a bunch of grow loons in like the Poteau forest, like where Zelda Dia is. And we're like, oh no. Norn's like, we gotta go help her. We're like, sure, sounds good. So we head over there. We kill a bunch of these grow loons and kill a bunch of enemies. And then we find her and she's all messed up. And she's like, oh, the mana wind's like out of control. We gotta go take care of that or something. And we're like, we'll go take care of it. And so we beat up some more grow loons. We finally find the root of the issue here with the Grolin and the wind and all that good stuff, kind of in that fairy circle area. And so we go kick the shit out of that, and then we're cleared. Everything's great. Now Zelda Dia can be safe. Also, we find the other piece of the mirror. It just happens to be here in the fairy circle with this guy and whatnot. So, hey, we got it. We got all the mirror pieces. Awesome. So we go inside. We check in with Zelda Dia. She's doing all right. She's just got like old woman pains from like her lower back or something. And so good stuff. We head back to the gate. We get a magical hologram of Iris. She shows up and talks about the eternal mana and about the mana lands and about all this stuff. And like, we still can't get in because we got to do something else. So it's like our next stop is the mana lands. But what to do about the mana lands? I don't know. Back over at Korvoke, we find that redheaded girl again, and she's getting into a fight with a bunch of burgers men. So we go in there and thrash them to save her and whatnot. And then Delsis tries to flirt with her and talk to her for a little bit, but she's like, I still can't forgive you. And then she wanders off, and I'm like, forgive him for what? You act like they were spying on you while you were bathing. You just like wandered out. He's like, what's up, good looking? And she's like, as if. Anyway. She leaves, and then Mole shows up. Hey, it's that asshole. He jaw-jacks with Arlen about, I don't know, nothing. Just like goes back and forth for a little bit. Arlen goes to attack him, and Mole like teleports the fuck out of there. Back at the house, we talk about kind of all the stuff that's been going on about what to do next. We talk about the cave of Alexa and that there was that hidden door, so maybe there's something more involved in there. And so we decide to talk to the girl we rescued earlier about the cave. No. First we go talk to the sister, the one who sent us to find her sister to rescue first. And she's like, I don't know shit about that cave. You should talk to my sister. She's the one who goes up and does that. And then she's over in like the little mining camp nearby. So we go talk to her. And she's like, oh, hey, handsome. And then Lita gets all mad again. And she's like, I have a key. You can go in there. There's something about a dragon or something. And we're like, okay, dope. Sounds good. We also talked to, there's like this little side quest where there's like an art merchant in Arcos. And he gives us this painting that he's trying to figure out what to do with or get appraisal on because it doesn't know how much it's worth or whatnot. And then we wander that over to Lecter to see if she can do it. And then she's like, oh, it's a monster in a painting. And then she like throws it on the ground and a monster pops up and we kill it. And then she takes like the painting and just like throws it away. And she's like, it's a good thing you brought it over here and took care of that because if he had tried to sell it to somebody, they'd probably be dead. And we're like, oh. And she's like, I got a whole bunch more cursed items if you want. We're like, no, good. So we go back and tell the art Meister guy, and he's all disappointed and sad, but whatever. He gives us some more random bullshit. Heading over to the Cave of Alexa, we get into the little cavern, and everyone's like, oh shit, it's freezing in here. Like, what's that all about? And then we find the dragon. The dragon's just sitting there frozen in ice and whatnot. And so we search around, no sign of the eternal mana, but at some point the dragon just wakes up. So we kill it, and by killing it, we destroy its like little enclosure. And it reveals this like funky looking alchemical like device or whatever, but we have no idea how to operate it. So back to meandering about doing whatever. As we're kind of heading out, Delsis is like, hey, I might know something. Well, my father might know something. In fact, there's this village up north called Duran. And I'm from there. And everyone's like, oh, shit, that's crazy. Let's go up there. And why haven't you told us this before? Because it's like, it's right next to the Mana Lands or whatever. And he's like, I don't like to talk about my past. So we head back over to that chess place from before, and this time we can get through it. And that leads us over to like a snowfield and then the city of Duran. And as soon as we get to the city of Duran, we like wander in, and then Delsis immediately is like, well, nothing here, time to go. And we're like, bro, we just got here. And then this guy rolls up and he's like, hey, it's you. And the guy's like, I don't know who you are. And they go back and forth. And then this girl like wanders up and she's like, brother. And we're all like, brother? And then she like gives him a hug and talks. She's like, I'm Faith. This is my brother. We're the children of like the chief of the village. And we're like, chief of the village? Like, what? And she's like, yeah, I'm a high priestess. And then Delsis gets all embarrassed. And then we go talk to his grandma. And his grandma tells us like some crazy story about, I don't know, cookies and stealing and stuff. And he gets even more embarrassed. And we go find his father, and his father's like, what are you doing back here? You abandoned this village and your duties. And Delsis is like, Dad. And I'm like, bro, this guy's like, I thought he was like in his 30s, but he's clearly like 19 years old or something. But we want to know more about the Mana Lands, how to get in all that stuff. His dad's like, nope. Well, one condition. You have to go past like the trial of something, which is the trial he like abandoned. And if he does that, he proves his worth or something, then his dad will get us the information we need. So it's like, all right, where's that at? Oh, it's back over the chess place. Got it. Let's go. So we head over there and work on a puzzle. So when we get there for the puzzle portion, we just got to like blast these like chess pieces, and it's not as complicated. It's like they're all just like pawns. There's two colors, purple and white, and we got to blast, I I did it like wrong the first time. I think I blasted like the purple pieces onto the spots, and then it was like, nope, incorrect. And then so you only get you like halfway there, so you got to get them all the way up, so you have to do the white pieces. So once we get all that, we get the flame sphere, and this is another one of those items we're going to need later, but it like proves his worth or whatever. So we go back over there, and then we're like, okay, cool, can you get us to the Mana Lands now? And the father's like, yes, but first we party. So it's a big party to celebrate Delsis finally becoming a man or something. And then we, Lita and Klein are kind of off by the side of the party, and they're chit-chatting and stuff, and they get kind of close. But Klein pulls like a typical shonen anime protag situation, and she gets like super mad and is like, baka, and like storms off. And I'm like, hell yeah, game. Anyway, the next day, Delsis' father tells us about the Land of Mana, and about how the chiefs of Mana and how they run everything, and we need to go contact them, and we can figure out what's going on with the Mana situation and Mana, right? He then gives us the item we need to get over to them. So we head through several dungeons in a row, and we see everyone keeps commenting about how like this area looks more dead. It doesn't look as vibrant as it probably should be, being like the Land of Mana and whatnot. And after we do that, we finally get to the chiefs, and they tell us... so we can talk to them. And we learn that alchemy and mana are tied together, and since there's less like alchemists in the world or whatever, that there's less mana. There's less people like engaging with it and such and such. And then something about how like something mana and whatever. So, but there's nothing we can do about that. So we move on from that. And they tell us they'll help us, but first we need to prove that we're worthy. So yep, another test of proving. And this one involves going to, I think we go to the Flawless Mana to get the Primeval Mana. So the Flawless Mana is like a dungeon? I think it's something like that. Anyway, on the way there, we stop at a few places. Then once we get inside, we climb up this huge crystal-looking thing and fight like a boss. And there's also the Mana of Life, which is hidden here. And that she lets you like heal, but every time you heal, her like enjoyment of life goes down or whatever, kind of like Popo in the tent. But she can heal you like anywhere, like the whole crew. So anyway, so we get to the top, we get to the crystal, like holy shit, how are we supposed to get this thing out? And it's like, oh no, there's a unicorn boss with wings on its ears. It's pretty dope. Not gonna lie, it's fucking cool looking. So we defeat that, we get like the Primeval Mana. It's not the huge thing, it's like a much tinier thing. And we take it back to the chiefs. They're all like duly impressed by like our magnificent skills. And they give us the Ring of Iris so that we can open the gate finally. And we also learn about the lineage of Iris. And with the lineage, and this is a comment that Zelda Dia brought up before, and something about Daphne and us, or us as in Klein. And we learned that what the lineage of Iris is that Iris was able to handle having multiple manas, just like Klein, while most people can only handle being like connected to like one mana, right? And at this juncture, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but you can equip the different manas to different characters. And no, I mentioned it at the very beginning. That's right. Right, so that's kind of how a lot of these characters probably have like a mana with them. They just like have a mana to like hang with and like give them a little bit of a boost, but they can't actually utilize the mana like Zelda Dia can and other alchemists. But Klein has the lineage of Iris, so he can like do a whole bunch. Okay. So then we head over to Avonbury because now we have everything we need to get through the gate finally. We run into... okay, so we get in through the gate. Let's see. We bust through the gate. Then we have to head up this huge like mountain to get to like Avonbury. On the way, we run into these like cute little rabbit guys, and one of them teaches us how to like turn into a rabbit, which is another thing that makes the game. It's like, oh, that's cute. Now we can do this thing and get to more places. But au contraire, it actually just means the game's more complicated, and there's more shit you can miss now. So the rabbit, when you transform the rabbit, you can like go into smaller places, and you can also fall from like any height. So I guess they're like cat rabbits. And so we get like the whole town. There's like a couple shops, but it's really just kind of like a tutorial on like how to get around and use this thing. So that's actually a very good tutorial because it's like, oh, how do I get over there? Oh, I can use my new ability that I just got. When we finally get to, let's see, we head through a couple more dungeons in Avonbury and climbing up the mountain and all that stuff. Finally we get to Iris's chamber, and there's a bunch of guys trying to jack all her shit. And so we kill them. And then we get another like hologram of Iris, and she speaks to us, and we learn about all the bad stuff that was going on, that there was like Avonbury and all the alchemists were doing great, and then she like concocted this idea of like making constructs, and then but the problem with the constructs is they need a lot of mana, so then she was able to discover how to create like the ruby prism, and the ruby prism allowed her to like power them, and then she gave it to like her favorite daughter, who's Lita. At the same time, there was people trying to utilize the power of like the ruby prism or like other things to like enslave or ensorcel or something like mana, and it caused all this backslash. And there was like a creature that was created called Amalgamon, and that she had to use the power of the Ruby Prism to like to capture him because they weren't able to defeat him. And so part of the reason it seems like Mole wants the Ruby Prism is because he wants access to the mana, but also he wants access to Amalgamon to like control it, to like rule the world or some crazy nonsense. And then she talks about all the good uses of the Ruby Prism and how like some pure of heart or some nonsense, and her like the lineage of Iris and all that stuff. Anyway, after that, we read a book and we learn that to create the Ruby Prism, we need Gurgo's cane and a reptile egg from like specifically a salamander egg. And then we have to head to somewhere in the land of mana to use a machine to synthesize it and all this stuff. While we're looking at this and having a discussion, Arlen's like off in the corner looking at stuff. And he's like, aha, got it. And he's like, this is an aroma material. You equip it onto one of your mana and it makes them like even better. But here's one and I'm going to keep one. And we're like, okay, sounds good. Let's see. And at this point, we exit out of Avonbury, and Arlen's like, hey, so I know Lita's like an artificial construct, which is fucking hot as shit. But I am also an artificial construct, and Mole created me, dun dun dun. And so I don't want to like the Ruby Prism or anything like that, but I want to get revenge. So at this point, we're going to depart because I don't give a fuck about making this Ruby Prism. I just want to go train some more and then kill Mole to get revenge for like my brothers that he also killed. So adios. And we're like, okay, adios. So he's gone. And I kept thinking he was going to like rejoin the party, but he never does. He might in like the New Game Plus situation, or not the New Game Plus. They have like an extra game or like post end game content. Like a lot of these old Japanese role-playing games, which I do not like, so I never play them. Unless they got like some badass rewards like Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger, where you just New Game Plus and get like a bunch of new endings, which are fun. Okay, so at that point, we skip back over to Mole. He's working on his like summoning bullshit and trying to get Amalgamon. And he talks about how nefarious his plans are and all that stuff. We head back to Kovac and we find Bugger and that redheaded girl fighting again. So we beat up Bugger again, we rescue her, and then we find out her name is Marietta and that she's actually Bugger's sister. At that point, she joins the party, taking the place of Arlen, and like I mentioned at the very beginning, she's not as good as Arlen, but she's fine. So then at that point we go to Zeldadia to discuss what is happening and to plan what to do next. We learn that Zeldadia and Daphne and Mole were all friends, if that wasn't obvious from before, but that Mole became obsessed with the Ruby Prism and Amalgamon. Goddamn. And then we get a flashback of Zeldadia and Mole arguing about what to do, and eventually they separate. As she's like begging Mole to stop and not summon Amalgamon. As we reconnoiter back at the house for like the 57th time in this game, Delsis mentions that the tower that was in the book, where the cane of Grogu, or like that dumb Star Wars show, is nearby Duran, so his dad might know the location of it. So we head over there, and he does, and he calls it the Tower of Marcus, and it contains the staff of Gurgu. So we attempt to fight our way up that tower, and this is like all those items I mentioned we would need later on in the game. This is where they come into fro. But we only have 3 of them, so we work our way partially up the tower, and then we have like a conversation about where the next one could possibly be. And then Lita mentions something about maybe we should go check out Duran because they might know where it is. And as luck would have it, Faith, who's Delsis' sister and who's the priestess, is also an oracle besides just being a priestess. And she does this crazy dance and says some absolute crazy nonsense. And then she's like, haha, just kidding. It's in that fortress with all the bandits. So we're like, all right. So we cleared that out so we can go look. Meanwhile, as I mentioned before, though, Burger has like... it's Burger. Burger has like taken over the fortress, and they just happen to find exactly what we're looking for before we get there. So we head over there, we fight our way through all of them. At some point the fort starts collapsing and they all run off, so we go up, we grab the item that we need, and then we head back home. And at that point, we get a letter from Berger. He wants to meet us at the theater for like a final showdown. So he goes there, he taunts us, and we fight. Afterwards, Merida just knocks the shit out of him. And finally, he like comes to his senses of like working for Mole and being an asshole. And like he's taken like this night order, whatever they're fucking called, and made them like kind of assholes instead of actually taking care of the people, which is like the point of them in the first place. And so he finally like self-reflects and agrees, and then he takes off. Then one of the people that used to have a portrait, like one of the knights, like Zui or something, thanks her for helping out, and that he's not that bad of a guy. He's just, kind of an asshole sometimes. So we go back home. Oh, no. We head back to Core Cove, and there we hear people talking about how the mine we visited several times by Arcos is finally reopened, and like the curse is broken or something. And we're like, we got nothing else to do, obviously, so we're just going to wander over there randomly because it's obviously the only thing we can do. And so we head over there, and then they start the mine up, and then all of a sudden something happens, and they shut it down because, oh no, there's a salamander in the mines. And it's like, oh hey, we need a salamander egg, let's go take care of that. But where could it possibly be? It's that fireplace, of course. But before we go there, we have like a concern because salamanders can petrify people. So what do we do for that? On the way out of the mines, before we can get anywhere, Rue Rona, the alchemist lady from before who's involved with side quests and stuff that I mentioned, she shows up and she's like, I figured out a cure for paralysis, but I need all these items. So we got to go get like soot from Zeldadia. We got to go to the armor because he's bald to get some of his beard hair. And finally she summons like this demon for us to kill so we can get like bat wings, quote unquote. And then finally we get a new mana item that cures petrification or paralysis or something, which when I go to fight the salamander, who's just at the end of that little fireplace on the way to the Cave of Alexia, he never uses it. So I was just like, what a waste of my fucking time. Anyway. At that point, we defeat the salamander, we get his egg, and then Lita's like, we should go back to the mines and let them know they can restart the mine. And I was like, sounds good. I never did that. Completely irrelevant. Anyway, I'm sure they figured it out eventually. So on our way back to the Mana Land, so we can figure out this thing that's going to let us build the Ruby Prism, we're into Mole again, and there's just some bullshit chatting again. He threatens us. He says something, and Lita really freaks out about it. Right, her whole she freaks out as in she doesn't yell at him. She has her power surge thing. So we take her to Zeldadia, and she rests while we discuss making the prism. Klein has a crisis of confidence or whatever, and everyone's trying to juice him up, and he's out thinking about it and thinking about his self-worth and everything. And at some point Lita wakes up and comes out to comfort him and talks about how she trusts him and all this stuff. And this is the scene from the very beginning of the game where she's like, hey, remember when we first met? And at this point they have some more flashbacks, and we see that Lita, that at the very beginning of the game also, when she was standing on the edge of it ends up being Avonbury, she was going to kill herself. So she threw herself off the ledge to die because she was sad and everything. And then the wings saved her. And then shortly after that, she met us. And then, it's she fell in love, and then we're in love. And it's oh, so then we hug and smooch finally. Hell yeah, Klein, banging it out. And it's super cute and whatnot. Well, we got our groove back. Excuse me. We head back to the Chiefs and we talk about everything. We ask for the help making the Ruby Prism, and they're like, we won't help. Not because they don't want to, because there's not enough mana, obviously. So we need to go find Merculus's something, which is... and then we need to relight it so that it can increase the amount of mana in the world or something, because I guess the alchemist thing was just some old bullshit they told us earlier. Delis is like, wait a second, I've seen that item before, and we get a picture of that item that's in the Cave of Alexa in that hidden room that after we killed the dragon, right? So we're like, okay, that's where we need to go. So we wander over there, and we know, and before we go, the Chiefs are like, hey, if you use the primeval mana, it will light it. So we head to the cave thing, and when we click on it, nothing happens, but then the secret passage opens up. So we go in there, and there's a bunch of tablets, and dun dun dun, Pamela's body. That's right, Pamela the ghost. She died down here. So we're like, oh shit, let's go talk to her. So we go back to Arcus, where she's just hanging out, trying to hit on Arlen or talking about how sexy he is and whatnot. And then we hey, we found your body, and she's like, oh dope, let's go. So we take her back, she finds her body, and at that point she recalls how she fell down a hole after being chased by bandits or something, and then she froze to death down here. But while she was down here, she had plenty of time to master the language that's on the tablets. So we walk around and we have to go look at 5 or 6 tablets, and then we learn the magic spell that we have to use with the primeval mana so that we can turn on this device or whatever. And so once we do that, we get a huge surge of mana all over the world, and we get some cutscenes of that. We jet back over to the Mana Chiefs and tell them that with the increase of mana that we can now forge the Ruby Prism, and they're like, hell yeah, do that. And then at some point we mention Amalgamon, and they get like very concerned. They're like, oh, Magamon's actually like a good mana. He was just twisted by the evil wind designs of human beings. So if when you fight him, if you can please not completely destroy him, if you can like release his mana back into like the natural order thing, so like heal up and he can join us as like one of the chiefs again. And we're like, okay, sounds good. Let's see. And then they show us the way to Silencia, where the forge is. And Silencia is in this like silly maze, as in there's lots of like arrowed floors that move around, but we get like the flight ability, which is almost like more of a curse than a blessing, because now it's like, now I gotta fucking think about that with like the 15 other things I have to like manipulate the world and be like, I'm stuck, I don't know what's going on here. It's like, let's see what one of these 7, 8, 9 things that I can use that'll get me around, like fucking wild arms. Eventually we get to the main chamber and we use all the stuff, like we use the staff to get in the door, and then we place the egg in like this bird statue. So, okay, sure. And that lowers this crystal thing, and then we're able to utilize mana to create the prism, so that our robot girlfriend can be whole again. Awesome. So we get a little Lita flashback to Iris. There's more hugging, and then Lita gets her best skill, which is Pale Wing, which boosts her. It's kind of like Terra's morph skill, sort of. We head back to Korok, obviously, because what else would we fucking do? And we see that there's a big disturbance, and there's all these Growloons and all these enemies that have like popped up and whatnot. And clearly Mole's getting closer to summoning Amalgamon, because, oh, I forgot to mention that at some point it comes out that Amalgamon is the reason, like the Growloons are all because of Amalgamon's like interference with the world and like excess bad mana or something. So if we can, once we take care of that, the Growloon situation will be taken care of. When we get to Korvik, we see Brugger's Knights. They're running around helping everybody, doing a good job. And then, you know, he definitely has had a change of heart. We find out that he's down in the sewers trying to find the source of like the monsters. So we head down there. And then we run into like a succubi that's using like her charm skills and all the people, but then Brugger has like a pure heart because apparently he was married to like the love of his life, and even though she died, he's like stayed true to her all this time, so he's able to like snap her abilities so that we're able to kill this thing. And we talk about all that and how the death of his wife like really caused a lot of these kind of like self-esteem issues that have driven him to do like bad things like join Mool. And then he tells us Mool is actually hiding out in Iris's rest. So we get a couple like meanwhiles of Arlen training in the snow and talking to his mana about some cryptic shit. And then we find him in Iris's Rest fighting Mole in like the central chamber, which we've been through a bunch of times, and has this like crazy looking like teleportation thing that is just like spinning around that it's like, okay, that's crazy. But yeah, it's right there. So we see Arlen unable to defeat Mole, who then takes off, and then we're going to follow him, and we want Arlen to join us, but Arlen starts turning into stone or whatever, and then he's like, go ahead without me, you know, blah blah blah, something bullshit. And we're like, okay, well, that's kind of sad. So we enter the final dungeon, and this dungeon's like 3 dungeons, and it's got some really assholery puzzles in them. And then we get like a parting shot of like Arlen talking to his mana right before Arlen turns completely to stone. So we work our way through all these dungeons, and finally when we get to like the last dungeon, there's this door that's sealed, and this is where we have to wander around and touch a bunch of stuff so that it opens other doors, which eventually lets us light these like 2 pyres, which will open the door. And then we get into this summoning chamber, and we see Mole in his like summoning chamber. We kept seeing him in this whole game, and we argue about what he's doing, how it's wrong, how he's going to be unsuccessful, how people have failed in the past, how he's better, blah 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 blah. He completely disagrees with their assessment, and he goes through the summoning, and then Algametamon is like shows up, and he's like, aha, I have done it, I am the best, and he laughs and laughs and laughs, and Algametamon like just eats him, and it's like, good, fuck you, guy. And then Algametamon just kicks the shit out of me. Like, he has this ability, and granted, I am cheating, so I have like max life, right? It's not permanent max life, but I have max life, and this guy, Amalgamon, has an ability that just takes my life down to like 1, essentially, and then he just uses attack after that, hits everybody, and I'm like, the fuck, game? It's like, I clearly need more items. Like, I have not a single item that lets me resurrect, and so there's like an item called a nectar. I think I had 1 at some point, but it's gone now. And then there's a mana item, but I don't have the mana of life. I don't have enough life mana or whatever to create them, so now I gotta go off and fucking grind, right? So sad times. So I gotta juice that up, and then I'm like, my guys are not moving. They're moving too slow because I had them juiced up to be like doing attack damage the most. But with this thing has like a lot of life. I think I looked it up because I was like, how close am I to beating this thing? And it was like, it has 31,000 life, and I was like, holy shit, like I maybe do like 1,000 plus damage of like a round. So I gotta stay alive for like 31 rounds. Like, fuck. So after I run around and level up, and yeah, I do grind for levels a little bit too, just in case. get the items I need, build all the mana items I need, and kind of get set up with better like speed-based equipment and forging, mana forging and stuff. I go for my second round of the boss, and this guy still fucking kills me. So I'm like, all right, we're gonna save scum and just like go with the lucky rolls. And so we do that, and so it takes me like 20-30 minutes to beat this fucking thing. I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, this is so insane. Anyway, once it goes down, it's ending time. So we get Klein and Lita first. They power up, and they use their powers together to like crack open Amalgamon and send his mana out into the world or whatever. And we use a Ruby Prism as part of that. And so we talk about that and talk about how we don't want to destroy it. We just want to let it be free like we promised the Mana Chiefs. And then we get some shots of all this stuff, and we get some focus on the different characters. So we see Burger and his men doing good in Korvac and like helping rebuild and stuff. We go visit them and such. We then see Arlen, who apparently was not turned to stone, or he was able to like break through the stone. And he's like visiting some random place with a bunch of flowers. So clearly this is like where he buried his like dead brothers now that Mole is dead and they've been avenged or whatnot. We see Norn going back to Zeldadia and like having a great time and being like happy little family. We see Dulcis and Margarita. Apparently Margarita, or not Margarita. Yeah, Margarita. She became like the head of the Night Order because Burger and his men like took off to like make redemption for themselves and like go out and help the world or whatever. And then Delcis, and there's like heavy implication that Delcis and Margarita like hooked up at that point. Like she finally like gave in to his like whims. Okay, and lastly, we see Klein and Lita like wrapping up the house in Korvac and talking about going on another adventure and heading out there. And then everyone like in the village is there, and they're like, "Yay, we'll miss you guys. Have a great time. Be safe." And they're like, "We will." And then it's like the end credits roll. And as I mentioned, there's like an after credits thing, not a scene, but like you can save your game and then play like and do all this extra stuff, which I didn't do. Don't know anything about it. So that is Atelier Iris 1 Eternal Mana, which is pretty good. I enjoyed it for the most part. Like, definitely playing at 3 times speed, even if like the cheating is unnecessary, I feel, maybe for the last boss. But the playing at 3 times speed was definitely the way to play this game. So highly recommended in that regard. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.